Putin took Crimea. He took Donetsk. He took Luhansk. He took the Baltava. While he's paid somewhat of a price, and you mentioned it in terms of sanctions, the price has not changed his behavior. The question is, under the Ukrainian Freedom Support Act, we gave the president significant powers. We supported an effort of, yes, sanctions, but also helping the Ukrainians be able to defensively protect themselves, and I would argue change Putin's equation where there are consequences beyond economic sanctions to his continuous engagement. He is on a process that he's going to have a land bridge to Crimea, and when that happens, for all our talk of not forgetting Crimea, it'll be gone. And so the question is the administration ready to assist the Ukrainians in providing them with the wherewithal to defend themselves, as the Ukrainian Freedom Support Act, passed by a broad bipartisan vote in the Congress, provides for?
Well, Senator, that is under active consideration. I think you know that.
I don't know that, but I'm glad to hear that.
Well, it's under active. It's been written in the New York Times and elsewhere that this discussion is going on. We were in the Munich
you just told me not to believe everything I read, so.
The Munich Security Conference.
So I don't know when it's good and when it's bad, but you know, you can cipher for it.
Of course, but it is the New York Times, right?
Well, that's a whole other thing, but in any event.
What I wanted to say is that I just talked over lunch with the German foreign minister, who had just finished meeting in Paris with the Russian foreign minister, the Ukrainian foreign minister, and the French foreign minister. And they had a discussion about where they are in the implementation of Minsk. Whether or not the very aggressive breaches of the Minsk agreement are going to now be shifted into a compliance mode is critical to any decisions that are made by anybody as to what the next step is. The separatist movement is, in our judgment, a de facto extension of the Russian military, and it is an instrument of Russian national power, and that has been exercised in the ways that we obviously have objected to. What we have done in our sanctions have had a profound impact. The ruble is down 50%. Capital flight is in the total of about $151 billion. The predictions are that Russian economy will be in recession this year. There is a significant, I think they're down to 375 billion.
I don't disagree with you,
okay.
But I would also say that he continues to send troops, armaments, and other assistance, heavy, significant assistance to the rebels, and sends people across the border. And at some point, you have to give the Ukrainians the wherewithal to defend themselves. I'm glad to hear it's under consideration. I would urge you to argue for it.
You know, there are pros and cons on both sides of that argument, obviously. Yeah. It's under consideration.
Okay. Finally,
and, we'll see where we wind up in the next, you know, in a short term.
One final follow-up on Ukraine. I know that there's a list of individuals, including individuals on the EU and Canadian targeted sanctions list as it relates to the Ukraine, that do not appear on the American list. The most egregious example in my mind is Alexander Bortnikov, the head of the Russian FSB. He is not on the U.S. list in relation to either Ukraine or Magnitsky, but is on the EU and Canadian list. Why? He was here, as a matter of fact, in the U.S. last week during President Obama's CVE conference. So I'm puzzled, and could you shed any light on that?
Yeah. We each had different choices about who we thought might be more effective to have a sanction on and what entity to sanction, individuals and entities. And so we both agreed that each would take their steps, and that would place pressure on all. And the next step, I think, if we take one in the next days, which is under consideration depending on what unfolds, will bring us into sync. So not only will we come into sync, but there will probably be additional sanctions to boot.